it took such looking within and being still and being perfectly honest with myself, and then having just discussions with my husband to say, this isn't working for us. Something has to shift. I felt like this huge weight lifted off of my shoulders.
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. Have you ever been at a crossroads in your business where you wondered, should I stick it out or is it time to move on? Maybe you're in that place right now and you're afraid to share it with anyone because they might see you as a failure. I've definitely been in this position before. And something that I've learned about myself being an entrepreneur for over 14 years is that I have 3-year creation cycles. So something will be brewing inside me, calling me in a different direction to make a pivot or an exit or create or close something down. And I've noticed my pattern is about every 3 years. And I think we all have different cycles of when we're ready for a new season, a new chapter, a new direction in our life. So kind of take a moment to pay attention to your own creation cycles. Like, what is that? For some people, it might be 10 years or 5 years or even 2 years. I just know my creative orientation, I say I'm an artist first and a business owner second, is I need to be building and starting something new. It's a part of my creative expression to really honor my voice and my truth as I grow. And there are some people who they want to be in the same business, the same offering, the same product line forever. And that's totally okay too. I think that is why I know. One of the reasons I wrote She Builds is to represent a diverse representation of what businesses can look like. They're not all unicorn, billion-dollar valuation type companies to stick with the same product and go all in. Some are more fluid and flexible and are really contributing to the flow and the fun that we want to have in our lives while we grow our businesses and contribute to the world and making a difference. So there are many ways that we can do that. And there are many tracks and the pace that we move through that. So in those seasons, I personally have to ask myself, what do I ultimately want from my life? And you can ask yourself the same question. What do you ultimately want from your life? And that's exactly what we'll explore today, what it looks like to get still, step back, and get honest with yourself so that you can create something that is 100% aligned with you, your soul, how you want to express yourself in the world. And in the season 5 finale of the Lead with Love podcast of this year, we're kind of wrapping this season up and we're going to restart right in the new year for season 6. But in this episode, I'm talking with Carol Gavhane, and she is the chief sparkler of Sparkle, Hustle, Grow, which is an award-winning subscription box and online community for female entrepreneurs. And she recently bought this business after creating and running her own intentional jewelry company for several years. And before that, she spent over 13 years in corporate America. So Carol is one of those people that has always dreamt about going into entrepreneurship, but never took that leap until a life event changed the way she looked at the world, which we talk about in this episode. And having sold multiple 6 figures of products online, Carol understands why being authentic to yourself is the key to business. And what's really exciting is Carol was an early beta reader for She Builds. And She Builds, because Carol was a reader of my book early before it was in final manuscript mode, She Builds is being featured in Sparkle Hustle Grow's January 2023 box, which you can subscribe to right now and have a box delivered to your doorstep. And the theme of January with She Builds is Build It Your Way, which is just the perfect way to kick off the new year and really allowing yourself to carve out that time and space to think, dream, and clarify your next level vision. I just feel my book is that perfect reset to really reflect and to realign yourself with the direction of your heart, the direction of your dreams. And what's so beautiful is She Builds is in good company because past subscription boxes have included books from New York Times bestselling authors such as Jen Sincero, Shonda Rhimes, and Jenna Kutcher. So you can learn more and subscribe to Carol's award-winning boxes at sparklehustlegrow.com. I recommend you subscribe right now so that you can get She Builds in your inbox, not even in your inbox, in your mailbox, which I love that when we kind of take some of the more tangible things of our lives and have it in our hands. I actually just saw someone on Instagram who tagged me sharing that they are listening to the She Builds audiobook while they're highlighting and taking notes in the physical book. And I am just like, that is a true student. And I just love that vibe. So of course, if you are a podcast listener, you might be an Audible listener. So if you go to shebuilds.com/audible, you can listen to She Builds. And I think that would be a very beautiful gift to yourself. And if you already have a copy of She Builds, I still recommend that you go to sparklehustlegrow.com to get your own box, because it's not just the book. You also get to join a community where you'll get the signature pink package delivered to your door, filled with fun and useful items to help grow your business, even like fun office supplies and things that will just spark joy in your business and in your day. And you also get access to online training from the monthly guest experts, which includes me in January. So I would love for you to join and participate, and also just send me lots of love. And you'll also get access to their private Facebook community to get advice, recommendations, and help from other entrepreneurs just like you, because we cannot do this journey of entrepreneurship alone. That is my biggest thing. And speaking of support squad, which I think everyone needs when they're growing a business, before we dive into my interview with Carol today, I also wanted to share a fun personal update that I just want to document in audio. Is I attended our former First Lady, or to me, forever First Lady, Michelle Obama's book tour for her new book, The Light We Carry. And I went to San Francisco with my friend Jen Kem, who is a part of my support squad. And it was just so good. And I'm actually listening to The Light We Carry on Audible right now. And it just speaks to everything that we have been going through, that we are still going through. And it's so beautiful to hear from someone who has created such a beautiful body of work and change in the world, but she also brings so much vulnerability and humanity to this conversation. So it's truly beautiful. And it's just so delightful to hear her voice and extend the conversation of what Jen and I got to see in San Francisco. We had a fun girls' night out, something that I do. I have a little bit of Yelp meal magic where I like to find where we're going to eat and dine. And so we went to this really cool, it was like a wine bar with pizza with hot honey on it. So delicious. So it was a wine bar, wood fire pizza, tapas, and they also play all of their music on vinyl records. So it was just this cute corner building, and it's called Back to Back in San Francisco. And it's a really cool story. Sorry, I'm kind of like hopping all over the place because I'm just so excited. And it's owned by two siblings, and their parents owned a restaurant in that same building 30 years ago. such a powerful, phenomenal story of just how our lineage can grace us with such beautiful ways of honoring our history, but then remixing it with something fresh and new. So I will definitely be back to back. So I just want to also celebrate that, you have the best bestie when she invites you. Not only did we get to see Michelle Obama speak about her book in person, but Jen had front row seats. So we got to listen to two phenomenal women share their wisdom, their vulnerability, and their light. And Tracy Ellis Ross was the co-host, and she was an amazing interviewer. It was so cool to just see their friendship dynamic. And Tracy's laughter is contagious. She was doing high kicks in her high heels, which was so joyful while she was sitting in the chair. Just to feel her sense of glee and expression was just so phenomenal, and just being so close to them. It was also beautiful to just learn about how they started their friendship. And they shared that friendship takes time and that we need to lean into the discomfort of not knowing somebody up front. So there were many gatherings that Tracy had attended with Michelle, and then she had a bold ask of just inviting Michelle to dinner. Like, would you like to go to dinner to me? And this is exactly what I talk about in chapter 4 of She Builds, really helping you build your own support squad by embracing 10 seconds of bravery. And that's exactly what Tracy did. She's like, do you want to go to dinner? And, Michelle might have said no, but she just went for it. So I thought that was so beautiful. And y'all, I just want to say, Michelle and Tracy were both dressed so fly, rocking their braids. And I have actually been following Michelle's stylist on Instagram at Meredith Coop. I'll link to that in the show notes, because Meredith has been documenting all of Michelle's outfits and tagging where the jewelry, the clothes, the shoes. I am just so inspired. Michelle had on this green velvet suit that looked so cozy and comfortable in what my friend Jen Kim calls fancy lazy. So you're comfy, but you also look super fly. And then she had on green velvet shoes, like flat slip-on shoes. Like they looked like Vans, but really fancy and cute. And just, she was blinging with some great jewelry on her fingers. I was just so inspired. And Tracy had on this great suit, which also had like pops of jewels with some fancy high stilettos. I was just so inspired. They looked so good and also so comfortable. So I just need to share that with you. Also, a cool fact that I found out and kind of researching, like, who is Michelle's stylist? Meredith, the stylist of Michelle Obama, started as Michelle's personal assistant and then became her personal stylist in 2010. So she's been styling Michelle for over a decade, but she started from the bottom and now she's here, right? Like, I just think that's so powerful. I talk about this in my book too, of how I was an intern for my husband's aunt. Like, I was willing to get Starbucks, pick up dry cleaning because I just wanted to learn the ins and outs of the business. And that was even after I had already started a brick and mortar business. So we need humility in those seasons of when we're changing and pivoting and trying something on new, because it's scary. It's scary to make that leap. It's scary to tell people that, hey, I'm not doing the same thing that I was doing before. Newsflash. And so I just think that's so beautiful. And one thing that I want to say that was really powerful during the night with Michelle and Tracy was the night felt like church with your girlfriend, just preaching the truth. I mean, we were all like, yes, and feeling it so deeply, but then also being so real and vulnerable about life. And Tracy opened up. I share this on my Instagram. She was sharing, like, Michelle Obama is just like us and not, it was just so beautiful. She's so real and so honest. And then also, she was the former first lady. So there's that. And one of the questions, there was a slide that popped up on the screen at the event that asked us, is there someone who brightens your life with the light they carry? And my answer, of course, is my support squad, which is what Michelle in her book, The Light We Carry, calls her kitchen table. So we all have this community of support that we can lean on in seasons when we're in that in-between stage and we don't know what to do next, or we're not ready to quite make that move yet. And of course, Jen Kim is a part of my support squad in business and life. So that would be my answer. She brightens my life with the light that she carries. She's a huge encourager of my dreams. Jen was sitting in the front row of my She Builds book launch release party. Then she even brainstormed with me after the book party to talk about just things that really resonated with her. You know, she's a brand strategist. She knows all about messaging and really helping me double down on things that were really resonant as she sat in the audience. I'm just so lucky to know so many brilliant, smart women in the world. And I'm just so thankful. She also interviewed me on her YouTube channel. So I will link to that in the show notes as well. So you can check out that conversation that we had after you listen to this conversation, because we all need those people that we can lean on, where we can not just talk about business, but we can also talk about parenting and marriage and big celebrations and also self-doubts and just everything in between. We all need our support squad, our kitchen table, our BFFs. All those things are so important. And we need to be able to shine our light from the inside out and surround ourselves with people who protect our light and not dim it. So I want you to be thinking of someone who brightens your life with the light they carry, and send them a personal message to let them know. That would be 10 seconds of bravery, right? And then maybe invite them out for a dinner date or something super fun. So that's my personal update. I just love y'all to pieces. And now it is time to get cozy with Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Jada.
I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today in celebration of your own transition in business, but also celebrating She Builds. It's finally out in the wild, which I'm super excited about.
Yes, I am so thrilled to finally get a chance to talk with you and kind of dive deep and also talk about your phenomenal, phenomenal book.
Yes. And I think it would be really helpful for everyone to just get a sense of how we connected. You were one of the early beta readers of She Builds, but I know you've kind of been tracking, following earlier than that. So maybe just kind of giving a little bit of context of how we've connected in this lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been a longtime fan of you. I think I first saw you when you were featured on Marie TV. And I was just very captivated. And so I kind of went down my own rabbit hole of who was Jada Selner and did some of my own research and, got on your list and followed you for a little bit of time and just really admired everything that you had created from afar. And you put out a call for beta readers for your new book. And I was instantly like, yes, I'm going to put my name in the hat or, in the ring, and I'm going to see if I can do this and if I can help out in any way. And so I was someone that you had selected and I was thrilled and over the moon. And at that time I had my first business, Asha Blooms, which was an intentional jewelry business, read your beta version and honestly applied some of what you had written to my own life and where I was at that time with that business. And lo and behold, fast forward several months later, here I am, and I have a new business. And I am so pumped to say that your book is going to be in my subscription box for the month of January, which is so wild. Like I would have never connected the dots or, thought that this could actually have happened. Like there was no way I could have known or foreseen any of this, but it kind of just happened the way that it did. And so now here we are chatting.
I know it is so wild to me because when I put the call for early beta readers, I specifically made a request that anyone who applied could not have worked with me before. So you weren't a client of mine.
Right.
You weren't in any of my programs. So you weren't really exposed to the processes and strategies. I really wanted to have readers that kind of the same way that someone's going to be buying the book out in the wild, right? They're like, who is Jada? What is this book? And how could I get this to make sense to someone who isn't in person with me or at a vision retreat? And so it was just a very cool synchronistic way of how we found each other. And I love the online rabbit holes, right? I talk about like having mentors from afar. So you watched a video on Marie TV and then just kind of following that trail. And it's like, you know, when you have someone on your email list, you don't know who are all those people on the other side, especially if we haven't worked together before. So when I read your beta reader response and just the results, I was just like, wait, what? And my book, when I sent it, was in a very messy manuscript edition. There were so many more cuts that we had to make, things that we had to expand on, move around. And that was really helpful from, you know, obviously my editor at Harper Business, but then also the beta readers, because, you know, most editors, they're not running their own businesses, so they don't get all the context. And so it was just so powerful. And then to know that you went from your jewelry company, went through some of the strategies inside the book and had some really honest conversations with your husband, and then bought a company, Sparkle Hustle Grow, an award-winning subscription box for female entrepreneurs. And it's like, you were the beta reader, and then you got this business, and now I'm being featured in 2023, kicking off the new year of January with She Builds being the book of the month for the subscription box.
Yes, it is totally wild. It could not have been more, you use such a good word, synchronicity. Like, I just feel like it was meant to be in many ways, you know?
Yeah. So take me to one thing that I'm curious about is, were you thinking about closing down your jewelry business, or where were you before you read the draft, kind of the early draft of She Builds?
Right. So I think I was coming off of a very frenetic stage, because I think I started reading the beta version at some point in January. So for me, in my product-based business, holiday is huge. It's very busy. And it's like, you are just working, grinding it out. And I knew I had to make it through holiday before I could do anything else, really. I had thoughts before of kind of, what's our next step? Where do we go from here? Do we continue on? Do we get a little bit of help? Where do we go? But I think I wasn't clear. Like, there was no path. I was kind of in like this influx stage of, I'm open to possibilities. I could continue on, doing this business, but it doesn't bring me great joy anymore. Or I could kind of figure out my next steps, and what those next steps were. I had no clue. I had no clue. And so I think there are actually two big things that stood out for me, and one of which I had known about, but I didn't really put into practice. But the first big eye opener for me was, in your book, you talk about energy, what depletes you and what gives you energy. And I made a list, and it was like so many things were in the depleting bucket. And that was, for me, such a huge sign that something had to shift, but I didn't know what that was.
What were some examples of the things that you can remember that were on the draining side?
Oh gosh, everything. It was like the social media posting, even just figuring out new intentions, because that was the piece of the business. For people who don't know, it was intentional jewelry. So every piece had an affirmation attached to it, and they came with specific names like, you can do hard things, I am brave, you are loved, things like that. And so it was very easy for gift giving. Hence our big push during holiday season, when people are looking for kind of, either different things to buy or something very sentimental. I made the pieces. And so I think it's like I had my double creator hat on. It's like I had to come up with the intentions, I had to make the pieces, We shipped everything out of our house. I worked together with my husband and he did all of the back end stuff. And for people who maybe don't know product, there's a lot that goes into just kind of posting like one piece on your e-commerce site. It's a lot of work just to kind of bring that to fruition. And so those were two big things. It was like, okay, coming up with intentions and then matching them, because I had different, every pendant or every stone, because they went with the stones, like had to be, everything was very intentional. Where did the necklace, for example, hit on your neckline? Was it closer to your heart? Was it closer to your stomach? How does this all go together? On each piece, there was like a small saying on the back or a phrase. So we said all the words for you, so you didn't have to. You could literally just present this piece to your person and that's it. And they would melt away and cry and be so happy, you know, but there was so much of me that like I put into every single piece and it was beautiful. I'm really proud of, you know, everything that we created from nothing, but it wore me down. I think I was burnt out. I was really burnt out. And I should also add that the birth of this business was very personal to me and to my husband. We created this business because I went through several years of infertility, trying to have a second baby, so to complete our family. And in the process of doing so, I had bought myself a hope bracelet from another maker on Etsy. And I took that thing with me everywhere. So it really became so much more than like a good luck charm. It became something very like valuable to me. I held it in such high regard. And so every appointment I went to, just everything I did, it was like, where is that bracelet? I was very keen on where the bracelet was in my purse, my back pocket on days that I didn't want to wear it because I was in a bad mood, you know, what have you. And so my son finally arrived. His name is Henry. And it was such a process of kind of bringing him into this world. He was born super early. We spent some time in the NICU. And I think because that life event was so, it just hit me so deep because before he arrived, I'd had several losses before. And so it was just things that are stacked on top of each other. I was like, well, I have a corporate background. I don't necessarily want to go back into the corporate world. In fact, I knew that it was like, for whatever reason, I was very drawn to doing this, you know, giving someone hope, giving them a little bit of strength by way of jewelry kept coming back to me. And so that's kind of how the business was started. You know, it took some time, but the whole thing was very personal to me. And it was such a journey. I talked about that story so much. And that also wore on me a little bit because right now, Henry is 5. He just started kindergarten this year. And looking at him, you would never know. But he's thriving. He's so energetic. He's so busy, all the things that little kids are.
Yeah.
And it's like that season of my life was it was coming to a close. It's like, okay, when I did the jewelry and when I birthed that business, it was all good because it was intended for me and for us at that time. And I should also say, people wondered, like, why did your husband get involved? And it's like the fertility journey also hit him too, just in a different way. It impacted him. It impacted me. It was physically my body and, you know, emotionally and all the things for me, but also for him because I did rounds of IVF. We had, like I had mentioned before, the several losses. And so it's like to watch your life partner kind of go through that. It does something to you too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such tenderness and grief. And also what I'm hearing you say is that you birthed this business as kind of a reverence, a ritual, an honoring of what really supported and held you during that time and transition. And then there was a completion cycle, a closing of the chapter. And I tend to look at that with me personally in writing books and businesses, that they're like capsules of time of like, that was a season in my life. That was a chapter, and it doesn't have to go on forever. We can kind of close that and honor it with reverence and love. And then there's something else that's brewing in you that feels more expansive, exciting, engaging. And so even though, and I know, I mean, you generated over multiple six figures in revenue with this product-based business, but then to be complete with that, from an emotional story to also just the logistics that it takes, and kind of coming to that holiday season rush and like, I can't keep doing this way. Something has to shift. Something has to change.
You hit it so succinctly. I mean, looking back, I can see that now, but it's so funny because when you're in it, and I also had such a different, I think, mindset when I was doing Asha Blooms. That's the name of the business. I thought of it of like, gosh, if I don't continue on, I'm a big failure. Like if I don't see this through and, we do this whole thing, whatever it is, I haven't, quote, made it. It took such looking within and being still and being perfectly honest with myself, and then having just discussions with my husband to say, this isn't working for us. Something has to shift. I felt like this huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. And now I know, because this is my second business, Sparkle, Hustle, Grow. And it's like, I've come into this with such a different kind of perspective. I come into it with a learning perspective, where I think before it was so much of a fixed mindset perspective. And yes, that at that time fit what we needed. It was a beautiful cycle, a beautiful season. And now we're so ready to move on.
Yeah. Can you take me to maybe one of the conversations that you had with your husband in kind of making, because he was just as invested logistically, emotionally, financially in Asha Blooms, to then making the transition to Sparkle, Hustle, Grow. Yeah, I'd be curious if there was a specific moment or conversation that you remember, and maybe were you pulling anything in from like reading the book, or what was kind of happening in that process?
I think it was multiple kind of get-togethers with him where and it was around the time, like after I had finished the beta read, where I would just be like, look, I wrote this list, this energy depleting, energy giving list. This is what I feel. What do you think? Here are some ideas for what I think are coming up next for us. What do you think? And also like me bearing my soul to him of like, this isn't really working anymore because I'm just tired. I'm tired of everything. And I think in the beginning, I don't know if it clicked for him, but I think when I kept coming back and not presenting him with these ideas, but just kind of having real conversations, I think that's when he was like, yeah, if you're not feeling it, then this isn't going to work. Like, I think that's when it was kind of a big aha moment for him. And I think he wasn't making the jewelry, right? It was a little bit of a different process for him, but I think he could step into my shoes and see where I was coming from. And I think in the spring, early spring, it was kind of like, yes, we are ready to move on. We are deciding this together. And that's kind of when we were like, okay, let's kind of see what else is out there in the world of maybe we could buy something. Because even though like we brought in, some of the revenue for Asha Blooms, it was really hard.
Yeah, profit margins with product-based businesses and shipping and deliver, like it takes a lot for sure.
It takes so much. And I think, because it was our first business, like in some ways for people when they start their first business, I think it's a good thing that they don't know the work that's involved.
Oh, totally.
right? Because I think then people would never start it.
No.
You go in with a little bit of like naivety, and that was me. And I can honestly say that now. It was like, oh, let's just build a nice website, put together some decent products and let's just see what happens. And it's like in the beginning, nothing was happening. And like each time we tried something, and we tried so many things, and that's what you do, right? And you still have to do that, I think, even with established businesses, because seasons change.
Yeah. Well, it's also changes. Even sometimes more challenging second, third businesses, because you're like, I already paid my dues, right? Like I should already know I know how to do all the things. I have all the resources and the tools and the confidence, but also sometimes that second, third, your confidence is a little bit shaken because you don't have that naivety where, like there's something, it's not blind anymore. What's coming up that mountain that you're going to be hiking up. So there's pros and cons to the different iterations of our business journey and the seasons that we're in, from startup to like a restartup, right? Where it's like, oh, yes, I'm a startup, but I'm restarting and I know more. Sometimes it can even bring in some more hesitancy than in the first time, because you just don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. I completely agree.
So one thing with Asha Blooms, did you just kind of close it down and get rid of the pieces, or how did you, kind of wrap and close that season for you so that you could step into the next business?
Yeah. At one point we actually had both. And so that was a little bit of a juggle. We don't anymore. Yeah. We just closed it down. It was such a personal business, a personal brand, if you will. And I was okay. We were totally fine to just shut it down and then just officially kind of move on. Yeah. We had a big sale, sold the pieces, and that was it. It was pretty seamless.
And now that you're in restartup mode with Sparkle, Hustle, Grow, what are you doing differently in business number 2?
Gosh, so many things differently. And the first really is like my mindset, and I think our mindset, because even with this business, my husband does it with me. He does all of the back end work, but it's just coming in, knowing the things that we don't know about this business. And that's okay, because we will learn it. Like, I think that's such a huge thing in entrepreneurship. It's like, I really believe mindset is 80% of it. And then it's also doing things that don't necessarily I think with Asha Blooms, I fought so much of it. It's like, oh Lord, I've got to muster up the strength and do a social post or do XYZ. And now I'm just like, I reframe it. I get to do this. I get to talk about the amazing products in the box. And not that it drains me, because I'm still so high and so pumped off of it. But just as an example, I'm totally reframing it. And I think that for me, that's huge. That's totally, totally huge. We're also being very consistent. I think in the beginning with the jewelry business, we weren't, because we had no clue. With this, it's like, you have to market. You have to put yourself out there, talk about the products, talk about who is going to be in your box, edify, and not just do it once. You have to continue to kind of, in your authentic way, talk about it and make sure that everyone kind of knows the scoop of what's going in the box, who's going to be featured. So that's kind of an immediate second thing that we're doing that's very different than how we approached our first business.
Yeah. And there was something that you mentioned that now you've created a weekly workflow plan, which is in the same chapter, Reclaim Your Time and Energy, in chapter 5 with the energy audit that you've brought in, theming your days into this business. Can you tell me a little bit about that and from your experience in kind of implementing some of those practices from She Builds?
Absolutely. I had no boundaries with the first business. I have more boundaries with this business. And of course, because it's still recent for us, it's been just a few months that we've taken ownership. Of course, there's going to be some late night working hours or working when the kids are in bed. But there is absolute differentiation between how I approach the first one and how we approach this one. It's like weekends are sacred. It's family time. We don't do much as far as the business goes. We don't ship out product. We have an autoresponder for everyone who, emails support at Sparkle Hustle Grow. So it's just a given that we'll get back to them during business hours, but someone has actually responded, right? The autoresponder has.
Yeah.
We never had that with Asha Blooms. It was, the lines were so blurred, and I thought that we had to, but you don't. So that's kind of a big thing. I've taken from what you talk about in the book, Free Flow Fridays. I really take that to heart with this business. It's like Fridays are my day to kind of do what I want to do. It's like, yes, it's so busy because we're still in some ways getting up to speed and learning really the ins and the outs and all of it. But I want to keep at least one day a week sacred for what are my dreams? Where do I want to go? Who are the amazing guest experts that I want to bring in, like yourself? My dream list, because who would I like as an entrepreneur if I'm a recipient and I get a box every month? Like who would I want to see? So for me, the Fridays are ultra sacred and just kind of keeping that going. Who can I talk to? Like if someone's like, I only have time on Fridays to speak because maybe that's their time for connections, I'm happy to do so. So it's kind of this like free form, take it as you will Friday, which I really appreciate. And then the other days are other days. It's like the second and third Wednesday of the month is when I connect with my community manager and my social media person, because we've kept that just for continuity from the old ownership. And that's when we meet. And that's when we talk about different promotions that are coming down. How do we want to phrase something and so on? And so I'm still working on that. Like that's a work in progress of like, what's Monday, what's Tuesday, but I'm really trying to hone it in because I think batching the work, so to speak, can really help you with like efficiency, but also like flow.
Yeah. And focus, like where important to put your energy versus.
Exactly.
I know for me, when I look at a to-do list and there's so many things on the list to choose from, I actually get overwhelmed and I freeze and I don't do anything. And then I'm just like, I'll just hide under my covers. So creating some of those themes within your weekly workflow, you can be like, oh, I will work on that on this day. And here's what falls into this category. So just take some of that decision fatigue out of the equation to be more intentional with how you spend your time, because all the moving pieces that need to get done. But if we can give them a home, then it doesn't feel like the whole to-do list needs to be done today or else. And so it just creates that a little bit more, freeing up that time and energy. Is there a story that was really memorable to you, that stood out to you, that you still are kind of carrying with you? Even, I know because you had to have read it through. And I think we didn't give people a very long time, the early beta readers. So my apologies, because I'm like, oh my goodness, you were like selling and shipping things, but I feel like we like gave it to people to read over winter break, which was probably like the busiest time for you. So I'm so thankful that you made the time and that it did help you make some really big decisions. But any stories that kind of stood out to you or stayed with you now that, obviously that was in 2021. So
right. Gosh, it was.
Yeah. So it's
oh my gosh.
Right.
That is so wild. Yes. I can't believe it was that long ago. Yeah. This story is something that I actually was talking to my friend about because she's been struggling with her own, what's my next step? The parable, and I think it's chapter 2 that you mentioned. Yeah. The yoga instructor and there's a businesswoman. And I read that. And then I actually reread it again in your physical book because I have it right here on my desk. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is everything. And for people who don't know, I'll do a quick synopsis.
Yeah.
There's a yoga instructor and she's talking with her businesswoman friend. And the businesswoman is like, how are things going? And the yoga instructor is like, things are going great because I teach on X days. And during my free time, I get to do all these wonderful things like connect with friends and write a little bit of my book and walk on the beach and then like drink wine and kombucha, right? And I still remember that because I resonated with that too, because I drink wine and kombucha. And then this businesswoman friend is like, did you know that if you could really like triple X your business by doing all of these things? And it's things like charge more, get more people into your studio, get some instructors who can certify under you, basically like franchise your business. And, you can make all of this money. And the yoga instructor is like, okay, like how long would that take? And the businesswoman is like, oh, it would just take, I forget what it was. It was like something, it was a very long time. It was like 10 years or 20 years or something. It was so long. And then the yoga instructor is like, okay, after many, many years, then what? And then the businesswoman is like, well, then you can write your book and take long walks and connect with friends and like drink your wine and kombucha. And it was just such a solidifying moment of like, oh my gosh, isn't that what life is about? Like you build something sustainable for you, but it has to speak to you. Like success is different for everyone, but I don't know. It really, really spoke to me of like, oh my gosh, you have to know yourself, know thyself, come back to who are you, and then do the things that work for you and your business, because it's not just your business, it's your life. And that's why I think your book is it's so powerful. You've got real life examples of people in their own business. And then you have all of the exercises that you can do, which is what I did, right? When I was like, okay, what's our next step? And you can come back to it over and over again, which is what I am actually doing with Sparkle Hustle Grow. It's like, what exercises can I do so that we can lead a life that we want? Because that's what we all want. There was another example, and I forget the woman's name, but you talk about her enough number.
Oh, yes. That was actually in the same chapter.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
oh, gosh. Okay.
That's great because it was kind of that parable that I rewrote was inspired by my friend and to help us define our enough number, right? Like,
yeah.
What is enough for you, not what the rest of the world or a unicorn billion-dollar valuation company enough or multiple 6, 7, 8 figure, it's just like we're constantly chasing and moving the goalpost, and to get really clear, like what is enough for you to live, to sustain and thrive. And sometimes enough is like, I'm trying to change the world and eradicate poverty. And I want to be the one to fund that. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's okay for our ambition and that revenue to be really big if that's the journey that you want to take on. But some of us are just like, I just want a simple, slow, spacious life where I can still be of service and really help transform people's lives or experiences or how they feel, and then have time to be there for my family and to have time to pour in and take care of myself and grow as a human, and that we're not just constantly doing, but we're humans that are also just being.
So beautiful. And that's exactly it. I feel like most of the women I know actually fall into that category. They want to run a beautiful business that actually makes them money and that gives them time and freedom to do the things that their heart calls them to do. Yeah. It's very simple, right?
Yeah, but a lot of business books don't talk about that. So we have this one very hustle culture, male-dominated narrative that tells us this is the way that you run a business. This is the way that you scale it. This is how much effort and work. And yes, if you want to build a big company with a lot of employees and reach a lot of people, that is one way, but it's not the only way to build.
Exactly. That is so beautiful and so perfect. And that's why, so every month for Sparkle Hustle Grow, there's a theme. And your book, She Builds, is going to be in our January box. I'm so I'm proud. I'm pumped that you're kicking off the year. And the theme is so perfect. It goes beautifully with your book, but it's build it your way. Because I want people to really know that you can build the life that you want your way. It doesn't have to be what your Instagram, person is building, or the unicorn business that like got valued at over $1 billion is doing. It's like, what is true for you?
I love that. How can people get their subscription box for She Builds in January? Where do they go? Is there a certain date that they have to get it by? Like all the things.
Yeah. They can go anytime in the month of December, because when you get a subscription in the month previous, you are reserving your box for the month that's coming up. So anytime from December 1st to December 31st. So everyone who's reserved a box will get their box delivered around the 1st of the month. And then we also open it up after the month is open. So around the third-ish week of the month, so around the third week of January, people will be able to buy Sparkle Hustle Grow, the January box with your book in it, and a whole bunch of other goodies too. I should say there's a tech gadget, office supplies, stationery, and other things, so that useful, practical things that are still fun that you can use to grow your business.
I love that. And I just want to acknowledge the full circle of the intention with Asha Bloom and with Sparkle Hustle Grow. The intention is actually still there, right? Of setting the theme, the intention for the month with the book. So I just think that is so cool that we can kind of carry pieces of what we built and created in the past. And some of those pieces, it's our essence. That's who we are. We don't lose that when we close down something or walk away from something. There's still a lot of that still lives on in your current business and into whatever you decide to build and create.
Amen. And I'm so glad you brought that up. That is such a big learning for me personally. It was like, okay, we're doing Asha Blooms. It seems so hard. And every step of it was so hard. Like we earned every dollar that we did, it was like grinding for every single penny that came in. And I am so grateful that everything that I did then, I'm just building on for now. And I can see it so clearly now, but at the time I couldn't. And that's, I think, the beauty of time, building, and having some grace with yourself. It's like nothing has to be perfect the first time around, because that will still serve its purpose. Maybe you just can't see it at that time.
Yeah. And maybe it doesn't have to be perfect the second, third,
exactly.
fourth, fifth, because that's what I'm learning in the creative process. There's so many things I could have kept fixing, tweaking with the book. And it's just like, I've got to let it rest. I mean, I was like, I want to move some chapters around, all these things. And it's just like, I can't. I just have to let it be and release it and let it do its magic in the world. So my last question for you as we wrap up is, how would you describe She Builds to a friend?
Gosh, I would say She Builds is the perfect book for any woman, whether you've got your own business or not. I think for all my corporate friends out there, and I still have quite a few, it's like, this still applies to you, because you can take your enough number, you can take the parable that still, and if you can see me now, you would see that I've got my hand over my heart. You can take all of these things and still apply it for your corporate job. But I would say She Builds is a book for truly getting still, being honest with who you are, releasing that through all of the exercises. So giving yourself the time and the permission to fully express yourself, write it all down, vision it out, and then go on and create the life that you want. That's what I would say She Builds is. It's a book of love for yourself.
And of course, that inspires me to ask the very, very, very last question, which is, what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice in your own business?
I think leading with love for me is just being really honest and showing those vulnerabilities to people. I personally I can't stand a lot of the small talk that I felt like I had to do, like in a lot of like the networking. This is all pre-COVID, of course, like when we could meet in person.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh gosh, we're going to talk about like the things that, okay, great. So you've got 2 kids. You used to do this for your corporate job. You live here, like you move from X. Like in my perfect world, I would get rid of all of that. Maybe you have that on like a hello, my name is, and you have all those 5 things listed, right? And then what I really want to get to is, what are you afraid of? Like, what moves you forward in your life? What are the things that you only tell your small circle or your best friend because you're afraid of judgment? I would love to get to those vulnerabilities because I feel like that's where we really share. And that's what I have been trying to do and aiming to do more of. Because I think when you lead with those, for me, that is really leading with love, because then you can really see the other person in whatever stage of life they're in, whatever season, and you can hold space for them. And I think there's something very healing in sharing that. And then you've got 2 people who are like, yes, that happened to you. I see you. This happened to me, and I hope you see me too. And I think when we all of us, we take off our mask and we share our vulnerabilities, love just oozes. So that's what leading with love is for me. Being real, being authentic, and just sharing some of the almost taboo things that people don't want to share because they're afraid. And then leading with love in my business is honestly just trying to hold some space for people. It's like, what is your job? What do you do? How can I connect you with someone else? People are very passionate about their business, but not everyone is making the money that they want to. So how can I edify them? How can I get them to the next level by way of a book, by way of a training, by way of something so that they can achieve their goals and live the life that they want?
I love that. And I think that you're doing that so perfectly with bridging people to the books, to the mentors, to the ideas and tools and strategies that can unlock something in them. And it's almost, again, a bit of synchronicity for them, right? It's like, we don't know which one is really going to crack someone open and unlock that next level vision for their next step, their next chapter. So I just love the way that you move through the world. And I love that we connected in this way through you being an early beta reader and now She Builds being featured in Sparkle, Hustle, Grow. I feel like it's just the beginning. I just know that there's so much more that's unfolding, and it's been an honor.
Oh, thank you so much, Jada. I'm so thrilled with how the journey it's still going, but how it perfectly aligned. It's so special.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.